What's happening, folks? So just going to do my weekly reflection video. Just talk about how my week went, how I found the week, my outcomes, and my percent each gain or loss for the week, and just go from there. So personally, I found this week a little bit tougher to trade, and I think the reason for that was just due to limited structure. I work quite well with structure. I tend to look to remain within zones or breakout zones and that sort of stuff. And with the limited structure, based on how last month closed, meant that I'd have to wait for structure to form and then trade in around that. And excuse me, I think because it was fresh structure that formed, it's hard to sort of rely on that to an extent when you don't see how that's being respected compared to like older structures and things like that, where you can clearly see that prices respecting levels and stuff like that. So personally for me, I just found it a little bit tougher to trade. I took a total of 5 trades this week, 3 trades on Wednesday, and 1 trade on Thursday, and 1 trade on Friday, and I came out for the week at minus 0.25%. So not the greatest weeks, but also not the worst weeks. Coming into Friday, I believe I was hovering around just around 1%, or just under, in terms of in the minus. And the sort of trade on Friday for me was more so like, right, how can I sort of limit the downside and just kind of close this week off on a little win, and then just go fresh again next week. So the days I traded was, I actually took 3 trades on Friday, or sorry, not 3 trades on Friday. I took 3 trades on Wednesday, 1 trade on Thursday, 1 trade on Friday. I actually can't even remember if I had already mentioned that, but anyway, earlier on in the week, this is how last week finished, this is how last month finished, and then of course, this is basically our week here. Let me just pull that back. Yeah, that's how the week finished there. So my areas to trade first and foremost were, let me just come out of the replay tool here. So my areas to trade was trading above here, trading from here up, trading from below here, and then as the week sort of went on and we were breaking down here, I just put a little ray in here to say it makes sense to buy above here. Now it was so early on in the week on Monday that the options to take breakout trades here on Tuesday, sorry, at the beginning of the week, I wasn't so comfortable with, just because it's a brand new month. We're sort of still very much bullish, just limited structure. I wanted to see structure hold above here, take trades. Again, there's no real need to rush into these trades. I was thinking, it's the start of the month, I was sort of want to start off with like a solid option. So I didn't trade Monday or Tuesday, and then of course Wednesday is when I started the trade. But reflecting back on Tuesday, there is options to trade in here, but I just wasn't so comfortable trading like in the middle of this. I sort of had this little support zone drawn up on Tuesday from Monday, and I know these, like, to me this is nice. We're sort of at the 4-hour highs, we're at the range highs. We've got 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour with 2 big rejection, which rejecting the resistance and closing bearish. And then not London open, sorry, well, there's volume there in London. Then 9 o'clock is where we get that sort of breakdown. Definitely options to trade in here. I just wasn't so comfortable. I do believe I could have traded this from a range perspective and had something like that, and just traded down to the bottom of the range, or traded into the support. But I just looked at this support and I seen it's only getting me 0.5%. to me, this wasn't really the like high. To me, it wasn't the best or the strongest setup which I like to take. So I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to trade inside here. And then of course after the session, we formed a support at the bottom of this range. So I was thinking to myself, well, is there a chance to trade this back up? Kind of similar to the sell down. You know, even if you break this high, which is lower resistance after the breakdown, like this is the first target. You're going to then have to, you know, reach and try and trade the here and then try and trade the here. We've already seen for 3 hours price fail to continue when we're at the top of the range. So to me, this trade didn't really make sense either. So I was like, you know what, not for me. But what did make sense, and what I was actually working, and I think because I had already just looked at the session and that on Tuesday and what price was doing, I was like, you know what, doesn't really matter. I was working, I was in the zone, and my alarm did trigger. However, I think I checked my phone and it was like, your alarm triggered like 30 minutes ago. And by the time I checked the chart, price was somewhere down here. You know, I do really like this setup from a point of view of, you know, this is the overall range. Like this. There's obviously a little bit of, you know, consolidation here. But we can clearly see that price pushes down, lower resistance off the mid-range support, breaks down below. This candle closes with momentum below the 4-hour resistance zone and closes basically right on the support here. So when this candle opens at 3 o'clock, again, this is sort of New York session, first hour of New York volume, continuation. This makes a lot of sense trading below these lows to sort of mirror this clean candle or mirror this or push down into sort of this area. So for me, I really like this option, but I was just a little bit late to it, you know, which is fine because I sort of hadn't planned maybe trade beginning of the week, and again I didn't see this candle form. If I had seen that candle form, it would have been interested, you know, but I sort of looked and prices down here, so that's cool. But I could have maybe played something like that, you know, mirror this candle or look to just trade the volume and just lock in price. So reflecting back in the week, that's definitely something that sort of matches my thought process based on trading away from the zone rejection, cleaner candles left, we're breaking away from all this, and there's clear momentum. So that was something I really liked in reflection, but not something I was able to capitalize on. So my first trade came on Wednesday. Now Wednesday was a little bit, for me, when I looked at the charts leading into the session, it seemed very much straightforward for me. I'm just going to kind of pull this back here. This is how the session was leading in. This is how price was looking leading into the session. So how I viewed this was clear momentum yesterday, clean candles. We have a little pause in the market, and then we break down. Clearly break below this support, and this is a strong looking candle leading into London and pre-London. So when I first seen this, I was going happy days. You know, I really like this. The reason I really like this is because if we start to break below Asian range, look at this clean candle here. We can clearly mirror that. And that's the sort of trade idea I was playing. Now, the sort of outcome to that trade, or to, let me just go back, to the session was this candle here. So I actually took 2 trades in the session. One was sell, and the second was sort of giving my trade a second chance. And if I just bring on my sell tool, which is the first trade here, and this was the first trade here. Now the sort of idea behind this trade, it was taken based on the 4-hour chart. Let me just have a look at my spreadsheet. Yeah, it was taken off the 4-hour chart, and the sort of idea was this candle has broken below the support. We're breaking below Asian range. My stop loss is sort of way up here above Asian range. The idea was when we start to break down below, that is continuation. The idea is to trade into a cleaner candle left. And my management of this position was, rather than cut the trade above Asian low, I wanted to give myself as much room as possible. I'm trading a bigger range here. There's a lot more room to work with, so I don't want to choke the trade. So I says I'll give myself above Asian high, because price could break below, come back in the Asian range, reject, and then continue if it wanted to. But as soon as price started to break above Asian high, I closed the position. So for me, this trade actually got triggered at 6:30 basically, so 30 minutes into the session. So we can clearly see here on the 1-hour chart, lower resistance forms. This candle closes, but at the time of me entering this trade, we were breaking down. So this candle was looking hella bullish. We were breaking below, and the candle then obviously didn't close below, closed within the zone. Next candle, London open, closed bullish, remaining in the zone, but again, we didn't sort of breach above, so I wasn't so worried, because again, there is a possibility that downside can come in. And then of course volume just kicked in here at London Open, and so just unfortunately didn't come in my direction. It came to the upside. But I think in reflection, there's definitely a few things that I could have done a lot better. I didn't think that this low was really an issue, this low here, but at the end of the day, this is some form of resistance and some form of support, right? If I bring that across, I didn't identify that was an issue, but I could have made my option a lot safer by trading below this low, because it's some form of support. So for the sake of a few pips compared to where my entry is, to compared to where I would like to trade, or that would put me in the safest position, I could have identified that. That's definitely something I didn't identify, and that would have allowed me to potentially remain out of this position at that time, because I wouldn't have got triggered. Then London Open would have come in to the upside. I still wouldn't be in the trade because I didn't get triggered here. Then when we see this rejection and the breakdown, this is where I could have maybe got involved on this break. And then of course from here, price then rolls over, but I wouldn't have been taking this managed position. So I took that managed loss, right? And let me just see, was there any other notes as well? The only other thing I just mentioned was, I thought, you could say, well, it's very early in the session, which is correct. But, I thought waiting for a break of the previous 4-hour low would be better, because, again, price is trading away from Asian range and it's below the low of the previous candle. The only thing I don't know is when that break of low will come. Will it come early in the session? Will it come a little bit later in the session? It came early at 6:30. But then again, if I had identified this low here, I could have avoided this initial first option. So in reflection, could have done a lot better there in identifying that. And that's something I tend to look for, is like when I'm looking to get into an option, I'll say to myself, well, is this the safest position, or is there a safer position than the one I'm thinking of? So this is where I feel like I slipped up a little bit this week in this option. So I managed this trade above here for roughly around 0.5%, or a little bit more, maybe 0.6 or so. And then what I actually done was I give my trade a second chance. So if I just take off this one and I'll bring on this one, I give myself a second chance. This trade was actually taken off the 60-minute chart, and this trade came. What time did this come at? Let me just have a look at my sheet here. Excuse me, this trade came at 9:30, or just before 9:30. So the idea was the exact same as the first trade. Only I had a little bit more information to support this trade. And that information was London Open had pushed up, looking at it on the 30-minute chart, pushed up, rejected the resistance on the hourly, closed back inside Asian range, and at this time price is breaking down. So again, we're breaking down with sort of, there is like momentum here. These candles are a lot bigger. It's London's came, it's pushed up, it's broke down. I'm now thinking, is this going to be the continuation? So similar to the first position where I didn't identify this low, I took that into consideration this time and says I'm going to go below here. So when this candle started to break, I was anticipating price to continue, right? Now, with stops, my stop loss was above the Asian range, because unlike the first position where I had a wider stop and I was going above Asian high, I said to myself, if price breaks down and fails and comes back into Asian range, I'm closing it. Again, that's not going to look good. So I could have done that in the first position, but that was like an improvements from my first position. Was I could have had stops above the hourly range rather than way up here on the 4-hour. So I says, that's an improvement from a stop position. I can apply that to the second option and still come out where I would if I had done the first position, in terms of 0.5% loss or in and around that. So again, price wicked down, broke everything, closed back in the zone, and then pushed up on the open of the next candle. So I just closed the trade here and full stop loss got hit. So a total of 2 trades taken, a total of 2% risk in total, and I come out with a total loss of only 1%. So I was happy enough with my management. My management of my downside is typically very good. But again, unfortunately, we just didn't get the breakdown here. And looking back on these trades and in reflection on what I could do better, one thing I could certainly do better is, because I'm playing such a big range and a big clean candle, why do I have to go on the break? I don't have to go on the break. Going on the break has led me into too many losses. We broke here, failed. Broke here, failed. What does that tell me? Well, wait for a close below, or wait for some form of structure below, and then trade that. Let price close below and confirm that it can remain below, whereas these candles couldn't, right? So that's what I could have done better on these options. And that was those two managed losses. So typically I only give myself, two shots. But I actually give myself a third shot on this trade. And let me see here. This was the trade here, and this trade was taken off, I believe it was the 4-hour. Yeah, it was taken off the 4-hour. So I believe the risk to reward in terms of where I entered here, compared to like my broker, was a few pips off. It was literally breaking below here. But this was the idea, like it's the exact same, right? I just looked at this off the 4-hour and says, you know what, we've broke down below this support. Prices pulled all the way up to here and then closed bearish, right? If the next 4-hour candle's opening and it's not continuing up and it's breaking down, this is going to get filled at some stage. It has to. Like, this push is definitely going to come. I feel like I was unfortunate with the volume at London on this day. as it came to the upside rather than the downside. And that's one thing I picked up on this week with myself, was I felt like I was typically on the wrong side of the volume this week, except for Friday. So what that tells me is I was in a little bit too early, and be a little bit more patient, wait for the closes, wait for the structure below, there's no rush, right? So if I just skip through one more 4-hour candle, here we go. This is what I was looking to get in my session with the likes of London Open volume to the downside. But the volume came to the upside in London, and then next candle gave the push, right? So the idea was the exact same, just to look for continuation down to sort of fill this candle. Now my targets on all three trades was in and around this region, and the reason for this was I understand that this is a full candle, but I just want to get a piece of this. So I know that this zone here is a daily or a weekly resistance. I was like, well, if I can come out above that, that's safe, right? Now, looking at this on the 4-hour, all I was looking at was we're here. If we break below here, we're trading into this candle. So why can't we fill this clean candle? What I did fail to recognize was this high, which is a 1-hour resistance, right? And as you can clearly see, when we tap into that, what happens? Tap in, close above, next candle pulls all the way back, and then we close below, next candle opens, comes all the way back. So, see, to be honest, I came out of this trade for, where are we? Excuse me. I closed out here for 1%, right? During this candle, excuse me. So I had to endure this pullback and this pullback, and see, to be honest, like, it was sort of like, it was difficult. I sort of had doubts, I had questions, I had, should I do this, should I do that? And I'm kind of just going to walk through the sort of trade here. This is the position. So, after seeing the lower resistance confirmed on the RD chart, in the previous 4-hour close with berries with a large ejection mark to the upside, I gave my idea another shot. This is where price began to break down. So, the aim at target was based on the weekly resistance zone. Left was clean, and I wanted to just come out above. But the trade idea was based on the 4-hour to mirror the candle left. And this is the 1-hour resistance, is something I didn't identify. So this zone trading into this wasn't something I identified because the idea was based on the 4-hour, right? So I feel like from an improvement standpoint, this is definitely something I should have identified. And if I just look at this chart per se, there's no reason why I couldn't take a trade, say, below here, stops above the resistance in the zone, and trade to this resistance and still get like a 1-to-1 risk reward, for example, or even 0.7, 0.8, and still have a really good option. So in reflection, I feel like I definitely could have improved the trade overall, because I could have get into the trade the same area, have tighter stops, but the stops are correct based on structure. So go above here rather than above here, target this resistance, and be out of the trade in one candle, be out of the trade in a lot less time. So kind of just talking through this trade and my thoughts and my emotions at the time. This candle closed, rejected the hourly, or reacted I should say, and then this candle opened and it came all the way back to entry, and my thought process was, I'm up like 40 pips or something at this time. Like, I shouldn't allow myself to take a loss. At this time I was out walking my dog, so I literally was just watching price, and it was the last 15 minutes of the hour, and it opened and just shot back down. This meant that that's how that RD candle closed, and I'll just show you this here. This is the candle here. So we come all the way back, this candle opens and just boom, we get an instant drop. Now, there's every chance that this candle could have opened and done what it done to the downside, only to the upside, right? So for this exact trade, my management was the exact same, coming out above Asian range, right? So I was still thinking to myself, we'll kind of discuss the management in a second. I just want to talk about this number 4. So, the thing with this previous candle was it closed at the resistance. Like this one didn't close below, it closed at the resistance. So close below would have been preferred. And as this candle opened, it came all the way back to entry. And again, I had the same thought as before. I was thinking, like, I'm in profit 40 pips. Now I'm all the way back to entry. I shouldn't really afford to allow myself to take a loss. Then the last 15 minutes closed bearish. Brilliant. Right, this just looks like breakout, pullback, continuation. You know, this triangle has just, we have prices all done is pulled out, formed a new target, done this, targeted the target. So now, is this where we're going to see the continuation? So that's what I was thinking with this new candle. But again, the candle just opened and shot back to the upside, so the hourly resistance is even looking stronger now, in my opinion. But what I done was I just stuck to my idea. You know, I said to myself, you know, I'm not going to close because there still is the option that this could play out. You know, and I had my management before, my management plan. So what I didn't want to do was to create a new management plan. Either cut the trade at a loss, cut the trade at break even, cut the trade at a profit, and then be annoyed if the trade works out in the end. You know, I said to myself, I'm going to stick to my idea, and I understand that I've made some mistakes here, but rather than act on those mistakes in the moment, I said to myself, I'm just going to take those mistakes into tomorrow, right? And if I get fucked here, I get fucked. It's a lesson to be learned. I know what not to do next time, or what I should do, right? So that's what I said to myself. You know, the candle then flipped and closed bearish, and we started to break down, and I just closed the trade. You know, I took too many losses earlier in the day, combined at 1%. I'm up 1% here. I can just get this day over with and cancelled and come out of break even for the day. So that's what I did do. You know, the management was a positive because the analysis outcome was a loss. You know, we came a couple of pips, 4 or 5 pips to profit. And we reversed and come all the way back up and hit stop loss. So from a analysis standpoint, you know, this was a loss. And you know, see, to be honest, like looking at this trade, I was like, what am I doing? Why I should just be closing that here when this candle closes. And the reason being is like, this is where I would have closed. This is where I did close. If you compare the size of that, like I just had to endure a whole 40 pip pullback for the sake of nothing, for the sake of closing below an extra 15 pips or something. So, you know, I could have avoided that. But again, the reason why I didn't close there was because I was thinking that the continuation was going to come, because we already had the pullback, the structure, the rejection, the breakdown, and now is this going to be the continuation, like this part of it, right? So that was Wednesday, and you know, see, to be honest, reflecting back on it, you know, it was a bit of a whirlwind in all honesty. You know, I gave myself a second and a third chance. I don't usually do third chances. And with the third chance, you know, I missed areas left, which price did see a reaction at. You know, a few months ago, you know, I would have been the person to close the position, and panicked. You know, but I remained calm, and I think I took the correct steps in the moment, which I see as progression. You know, recognizing I missed something, and rather than panic and take action in the moment, I told myself, take it in the next trade. You know, the result really doesn't matter for me at this stage, so take that lesson into the next day and go from there. So, you know, based on like an emotional perspective, you know, I'm pleased with that aspect of my trading, that I didn't allow myself to get overwhelmed with what I was seeing, and just remind myself of what the plan was, and I can always improve on that. So looking at the whole day, my management across all positions, I'm very pleased with. I managed two downside trades which ended up hitting stop loss, and I managed the third trade well in profit. At the end of the day, you could say that I didn't, but you know, without win or loss, um, what was the overall outcome without any management? Sorry, um, the trade lost. The fact that I was able to come out of the profit, I see that as good. There definitely is some improvements that I could have done in there, but I see that as positive regardless of the journey of that trade not being so smooth. So a little bit of a roller coaster of a day, and like something like this has just sort of like reaffirmed and made me think like there's definitely a lot of improvement to be made here. I didn't really need to take first option a little bit early. I failed to identify left. I could have avoided that. And then of course identifying the fact that I'm playing such a bigger range, I can afford to let candles break down and form structure below, right? So I'm happy with the overall outcome, but I'm also not happy with how I managed and acted in those trades. Because I'm sort of at the stage now where I'm trying to allow things to play out a little bit more. I don't want to be so actively managing positions, and it's more so just a stage I'm going through to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because last year I was in profit and I was quite uncomfortable, sorry. So I was saying to myself, like, why do I have to endure this uncomfortability? Like, why is this uncomfortable for me? Like, it doesn't have to be. So I'm just trying not to make it that, which is a journey in itself. Going to be times where you'll come out of a position early and it'll go on, or you'll close a position, and you'll say to yourself, I should have done the opposite, right? But it's just kind of understanding when's the right times to sort of take that approach, um, to that. So that's Wednesday. I know this video is like 32 minutes already. Um, but this is just me spitballing. This is me getting all my thoughts out. This helps me, and um, that's the main thing. That's the main thing for me. So moving on then to Thursday. This was Thursday. Let me just skip through. So this is how I, leading into the session, this is how price was. So I've got a bullish bias here. I like the fact that this is sort of the range we're playing, or you could say overall this is the range. I like the fact the price has formed support here. We've broke down. We've then tapped into the weekly zone. We've then closed back above this support. So my thought process is if price can remain above, we can look to push up into here. I drop down to the 1 hour chart. I see that there is this hourly support, or sorry, resistance, which is basically Asian range here. I'll just remove that. I dropped to the 30. I seen that there was this support here. So my thought process was I want to be trading above this, because even if price breaks Asian range, I don't want to be taking breakout trades here because this could just react off that. I would prefer, for me, I'm seeing if I'm above here, whether it's structure, breakout, I'm putting myself in the safest position here, in my opinion, see further upside. Because I'm not trading into a support, I'm trading away from a support. But looking at the session candle didn't offer an opportunity. We couldn't even get above, and we broke down. And then 10 o'clock to 2 to 6. So my idea, this plan, I give myself this shot outside of my trade session, my normal trade session. And the reason being is because price didn't really go anywhere. I seen this range here all day. Failure to break down, lower resistance, failure to break down, failure to break down. Support forms. This second bullish candle confirms support. Has a rejection work to the upside. 2 o'clock opens, new 4-hour candle. I'm thinking to myself, price is pushing up. There is volume here. If we break here, what's the chances of price continuing? Right? I've also got 1-hour support, 1-hour support, range support in here. I've got 4-hour support, 4-hour resistance. Like, all these are barriers that I'm seeing that if price comes back down, cannot respect to continue. And unfortunately it didn't, again, when I say, like, I feel like I'm on the opposite end of the volume, there's every chance that this candle here and this candle here and this candle all come to the upside, but I seem to be a little early, a little on the opposite end of the volume, and that happens. So this is where I closed my position. I closed out here for a full loss here of about 75%, or 0.75%, sorry. And that was that. I give myself as much room as possible to manage the position, give myself Asian high, Asian low, 1-hour supports in here, and price just wasn't moving nicely. It was just really, really aggressive. So I said to myself, I'm just going to close it. The trade idea, in my opinion, made sense. Could it have been one that I avoided? Absolutely. But I felt the idea was still valid because although we're looking bearish, we haven't broken down, and we were starting to break up, breaking above and stuff. So, improvements also on this trade was I could have traded here. I came to the market looking for buys, but in my opinion, I felt I was safer buying above this range than buying below it and into it. However, as you can see, we closed below, leading into London Open. London Open puts a support, confirms a support. Could have traded this to the top of the range, or look to trade this up and potentially out with volume because it's London Open, and that makes a nice trade. But an improvement standpoint for sure, but not one I was comfortable with. I was more interested in trading away from all this garbage and trading into it. So that was that trade. Took that for, like I said, 0.7%, 75% loss, and I was sitting around 1%, 0.8, 0.9 or so, like minus for the week so far. Friday came around, and I got involved in a buy on Friday. So this was how price was looking leading into the session. We have a bullish bias. We've came even a little bit deeper here. You could say that this is just structure here. All price is done is broken out, formed a target, pulled back the previous structure, and now is this going to be what's happening? So if I just kind of get rid of the tool, this is what happens. We get that upside. So kind of similar to what I was looking for here. I was looking for this here. It just was too early. It didn't come. It sort of came here, the following day. This trade was taken on the 30-minute chart. It was a very easy trade for me. I was just looking at this as the RD range. I was looking at this as an RD range here. Right? This is how I was viewing this. What's price done? Well, we've pulled back, formed a lower resistance, failed to continue down, formed a higher support, closed inside. Can price remain inside? No, we form a lower resistance, break down, but we don't continue, we don't break down below this support or below this. Higher support forms again. I look at this on the 30-minute chart. Price then closes within the zone. And look at the size of that candle. This is at 7 o'clock, half 7. This is a no-brainer for me. I took a buy here in a 30-minute chart, and I just tried to play to the top of the range. What was I going to say? Yeah, some people might be curious as to why targets are there. Because why did you not target the 4-hour resistance here? Why did you not target here? And so on. You know, it doesn't really make sense for me to trade here with a stop here to target this. And again, I'm just sort of focusing on this candle's massive. What do I expect next? Continuation. This is a clean candle. We could mirror this candle. Ultimately, what I was looking for here is sort of similar to here. Are we going to get that? Well, looking at the trade as well, we sort of pushed up, and it was like 7 minutes left of the hourly candle before London opens, and price was just hovering around. You know, I'm already negative for the week. I just said to myself, close the position at 0.5% gain, minimize the drawdown for the week. I'll still be in a little bit of drawdown, but that's fine. Manage as much as you can. Out of the week, be done. So that's what I've done. I just closed the position. London opened. We didn't get continuation. We sort of came all the way back down, closed bearish, and then volume sort of kicked in at 8:30 to the downside. Now, my management position of this trade before I even get into it was I was going to close either halfway in the Asian range or down towards Asian low. And the reason for that was, this is, like I said, this was sort of like the range I was playing hourly. I wanted this hourly support to have some, to see could this maybe be, if we break below Asian range, not the best signs, but price could maybe just come a little bit deeper into here to maybe give this. We've also got hourly resistance in here, hourly support. So is this an area that price can find support? So the decision for me to close here was great, because price came all the way down, and I would have took another money's loss here. And I was seeing price form supports, and I was like, there's definitely an option that you could trade this again up to here, but I wasn't really in the position based on how my week went to give that another shot. Maybe another day, but didn't make sense for me then. So I closed out at 0.5% gain, took my overall return for the week down to just in around 0.25, 0.3% loss for the week. And that's sort of how my week went. But definitely, like, I'm so glad this week happened, because I've learned a lot. The last 2 months for me have been pretty nice. You know, I've had pretty straightforward trades based on structure, doing quite well. And then I had this week, which wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, but there was a lot of lessons learned, which is a good reminder to say, like, you know what, you still need to be on top of your game, and there's still a lot of progress to make. So I'm definitely going to take those lessons learned in the next week and be a little bit more cautious, ask myself a few more questions when it comes to getting involved, and really, does it make sense? Do I really need to get in right now? Can I wait for a little bit more development, and that sort of stuff? So weekly reflection done and dusted. My longest video yet, 44 minutes. But you know, if you watch it, you watch it. If you don't, you don't. I don't expect anyone to. But this is just me putting all my stuff out there, and just talking about it, because it definitely helps me when it comes to taking these things forward into the following weeks and stuff. So get this one put through.